cycling for sure was really the one that I was my least favorite. But as I grew older and, I visited my granddad a couple times in Mallorca and began to fall in love with the sport, did the coast to coast with my dad and some friends a couple times.
That's super cool.
My dad was always really pushing the cycling side of things. He put me into races, which I hated.
That was the same, actually.
But weirdly now, I would probably say it's my favorite out of the three. It's probably the one I enjoy doing the most.
Welcome to the Helmet Podcast. I'm Danni Shrosbree, a pro gravel racer and host of this podcast talking all things cycling safety, design and performance. I am sat here in the Met Wind Tunnel and joined online with Kate Waugh, a professional triathlete. Welcome to the podcast, Kate.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely intro. Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you. I'm just back in Andorra after a training camp in Australia. And yeah, happy to have joined the Met family. So thank you for having me.
Very contrasting weathers, Australia to Andorra, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Went from heat and humidity to snow, actually, which I wasn't really expecting right now.
I mean, I know that obviously you're a very known athlete in the triathlete world, but for our listeners that will be new to this podcast, it would be cool to get a bit of a backstory about you and how you got into triathlon, really.
Yeah, I started triathlon from a very, very young age. I kind of was born into a pretty sporty family on my kind of mum's side of the family. They were super athletic, from New Zealand originally, and her grandfather played for the All Blacks, and like super sporty family.
Oh, wow.
And my mum, played a lot of hockey and a lot of running when she grew up, and still plays hockey right now. And then kind of on my dad's side of the family, my granddad, his dad was cycling crazy, actually lived in Mallorca and basically rode his bike every day, was probably my biggest fan. Unfortunately now has passed away, but he was cycling mad. So I guess I was kind of born into the three sports very early on. I was put into swim lessons, put into a running group, and learned to ride a bike from as early as I remember. And so, yeah, all three sports were kind of part of my life really early on, but I was super kind of sporty, doing all sorts from taekwondo to hockey to netball to I did professional gymnastics for a few years. And then, kind of at the age of 8, there was just a local triathlon going on, and a few people from my swim club were doing it as well. So we all decided our parents decided to put us into that. And I absolutely loved kind of combining the three sports that I'd known for so long. And I guess from there, I just started to enter more triathlons. There was a really great local league. I'm from the northeast of England, from Newcastle upon Tyne, and there was a really great local triathlon series, and I just competed in that. And then eventually that led to doing my first nationals, and then next thing I know, I was getting scouted for international races. And year after year, I guess the level of competition just grew and grew. And now I'm here, having done my first Olympic Games and calling it my first full-time job, and loving it.
Incredible. I think one thing we can definitely relate on is obviously both being from the UK. I feel like I kind of was brought up in a similar area, I suppose, in terms of I feel like triathlon was like a great opportunity for you when you were young. Seems like there was always after school clubs or stuff like that. But for me personally, I laugh at it now because I cycle full time, but I loved the swimming and running. And I think mainly because I did it with my friends, but the cycling discipline, I actually used to really struggle with, especially when I was younger. And I was wondering if, was there a certain discipline that when you were younger, you preferred, but as you grew up, it's now now you've got a favorite, or you just love it?
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think cycling for sure was really the one that I was, my least favorite. I don't know, actually swimming was a close one as well. Really.
Starts.
Yeah, I've always had a love-hate relationship with swimming. I kind of call it the necessary evil in triathlon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was part of a swim team. I was part of what was Newcastle swim team back in the day with, yeah, exactly the 4:30 a.m. alarms, which it's never going to increase your liking to the sport. I would say mostly I did cross country back in the day. I was part of Berkeley Athletics Club, and yeah, I would say my main focus was running. And yeah, every winter I would target kind of northerns and nationals and intercounties. And it's such a huge culture in the UK, the running scene. And I absolutely loved that. And I guess as well, that's where I had my closest friends at the time. We all were kind of part of that run club, and we had a really, really great squad. We had a really great relay team, won nationals a couple of times. And so, yeah, that was probably my favorite out of the three. As I kind of grew older and, I visited my granddad a couple of times in Mallorca and kind of began to fall in love with the sport, did the coast to coast with my dad and some friends a couple of times. And my dad was always really pushing the cycling side of things. He put me into races, which I hated. But
That was the same, actually.
Weirdly, now I would probably say it's my favorite out of the three. It's probably the one I enjoy doing the most. So yeah, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's no doubt last year you had an absolute outstanding year in the T100 series, obviously finishing with that World Championship title there. Can you explain a bit? Because I mean, triathlon is, I suppose it's so broad in terms of you have the Ironman distance, the sprint distance, the Olympic distance. Can you explain the process of how you get in to the T100 series?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a really quite a new series, but I always remember being so inspired by the women racing the T100 series, or it was called the T100 World Tour, I think, when it first started out. And yeah, obviously my thing was always short course and, going to an Olympic Games. And I had a really kind of bumpy road to qualifying for the Olympics. And I went there and it was incredible. That was my dream to go to an Olympic Games, but I didn't quite have the performance I wanted. I think the whole experience and the build up just hadn't been ideal. And yeah, I performed at the Olympics. And to be quite honest, afterwards, I felt really, really burnt out and was kind of questioning my love for the sport. And the post-Olympic depression is real. It's it's a real thing. And even with athletes I knew who competed exceptionally well, also kind of suffered the same experience, which is crazy. I guess you go your whole life building up to kind of the dream race, like the pinnacle of the sport. And then kind of when it's all over, you're kind of looking around like, oh, what do I do now? It wasn't for me personally, it wasn't the experience was amazing, but the performance was far from what I wanted it to be. And so I guess I just felt like I needed to channel my energy into something different just to see, whether I could just reignite my love for the sport. And that's where I had the idea to maybe try out the T100 for a year. And I was lucky enough to get a contract, which was really cool. And I just decided in 2025 that triathlon for me was just going to be about kind of refining my love for the sport. And I had like a really great winter of training, probably my most consistent ever, I guess, because I just wasn't putting any pressure on myself either. And then obviously was learning all things about TT riding, aerodynamics, and the whole non-drafting distance scene, which was brand new for me. Obviously, I'd watched a lot on TV, but never kind of experienced it myself. So it was all really new and it made it really exciting. And then I went to my first T100 in Singapore with zero expectation. I remember my manager asking me the night before the race, so what do you think you can do tomorrow? And I'm like, I don't know, like a top 10 would be great. Top 10 would be really, I'd be really chuffed with that. And then, I just felt amazing all day and had the race of my life, and then ended up, I think, having the biggest winning margin in a team ever. So the whole year kind of rolled on like that, and I just rode this incredible wave for the rest of the year.
Yeah. It's probably gaining that confidence, I suppose. Because although, yeah, I mean, I'd be really interested to see how, because from what it seems on the outside, in gravel, it's very privateer life. You're getting all these individual sponsors, like your bike sponsor, your kit sponsor, your helmet. And obviously for you, you mentioned aerodynamics and how important it is. And I suppose and the non-drafting. So I mean, you obviously put so much effort into training, recovering and everything, but also so much in triathlon must be about optimizing your kit and everything you use. Do you think, was that a whole new learning curve for you coming into the T100, and what did you do to optimize and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big shock to the system, honestly. Like I was so overwhelmed with how much detail there was with everything about fine tuning the bike, the suit, the kit, the nutrition, everything. Like obviously the front end system was a huge part of it. I spent hours and hours on a velodrome in Denmark. I had a really great group of people helping me in Denmark.
Wow.
I was training a lot in Copenhagen at the time. And yeah, I had the most amazing people who, like the Danish triathletes, who are so dialed with their aerodynamics. Yeah. So I was really, really fortunate to work with them, and yeah, they helped me so much. So we spent hours on the velodrome getting dizzy and testing out all sorts of positions. And yeah, it was completely overwhelming. And people kind of asked me before Singapore, like, were you nervous? And I didn't even have time to be nervous for that race, because there was just so much I felt like I needed to think about, and so many processes I needed to tick off, that nerves didn't really come into it. So that was, I guess, big change as well.
I suppose in every discipline, in the swim, the bike, the run, you're faced with elements, whether it's water drag, wind, fatigue, because you've got 3 events to do. You're just constantly up against it. So if you can create these gains, it's almost as important training as going and doing a hard session, right? Like, for example, being in the TT position, especially.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the amount you can save in aerodynamics, could count for months and months of training. So, it's worth spending 5-6 hours on a velodrome, even if it's not kind of the optimum training day. It could account for many, many watts saved. So yeah, it's a big learning curve. And yeah, obviously with Singapore as well, there was a huge heat factor that we needed to think about as well. So yeah, there was a lot to think about.
For out of interest, each course is like, if you go to a colder place, are you thinking about are you constantly swapping your equipment and everything? Whether it's suits, helmets, like, are you constantly thinking about, I mean, you must travel with a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was constantly changing the front end system to suit the course. So, for example, in Singapore, I was just trying to optimize the hydration system. For me in Singapore, that was more important than aerodynamics, because I knew the elements, like how hot and humid was going to play more into the race than aerodynamics necessarily. And it was also quite a hilly course. And then say for San Francisco, which was a super hilly race, was trying to keep the bike as light as possible. So trying to maybe cut down on hydration system and rely more on water stations, which I actually had to do in the end, because I lost all my hydration over the first bump of that race. Yeah, so, but it's even stuff like that about how to make sure that you're keeping your bottle secure. And, also for San Francisco, it was a freezing cold race. We had kind of wetsuit. We had like gloves in the swim and little booties. So there was just, each race kind of throws something at you, which I think is really cool about kind of triathlon, is that there's always other things to think about. And particularly with the T100 series last year, it was so diverse that, it made it really interesting. Yeah,
it's crazy. I think it's like, it's just mad, I think, in the last few years, how much aerodynamics has evolved. Like, I feel like it's the new buzzword is how many carbs are you having and how many watts are you saving? I feel like everyone's at such a close level now, because they have the science and they have all the information around them, that these marginal gains are like essential and the difference between a win, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everyone kind of trains very, very similarly. There's, the training doesn't differ too much in what we do, but it's how you can obviously maintain the training load with kind of dialing in nutrition and recovery strategies, but also in racing, what's your kind of optimum grams of carbs per hour that you can take in, and, what's the optimum position you can hold, because you can have the most dialed position in the world in the wind tunnel, but if you can't hold it for the 80K, then it's absolutely pointless. And so it's cool. It's super like interesting, and it's cool to see the sport evolving so much like this, but it does make our lives a lot harder when there's so much to think about as well. But luckily I have a good team of people around me that keep me accountable, and constantly kind of challenging what I'm doing, which is great.
Yeah, because honestly, I get stressed just about cycling, let alone thinking about all those other disciplines and everything. But you mentioned briefly about your training. It'd be interesting to get, I mean, obviously you don't have to share exact insights, but like, what does a typical week look like for you in training? I guess there's no rest day when you've got 3 disciplines, or an easy day. It makes me laugh. Triathletes say, oh yeah, I've got an easy day, and they're doing like a 50K ride or just an easy 2-hour swim or something. It's mad.
Yeah, people think we're crazy, but if I have a full rest day, I do go a little bit crazy, because I'm just not used to having nothing to do. So I actually quite like having something to do every day. But I mean, at the moment, unfortunately, I have a bit of an injury. I have a bit of a calf injury. So not my typical training weeks at the moment. A lot of time with physio and rehab, which is taking up a lot of time as well. But but I'm kind of on the up from it, which is great. But I typically in a week, I would do kind of maybe 2 run sessions, maybe 1 on the track, and maybe 1 like longer tempo threshold run, and then also a long run as well. I usually run kind of 6 days a week. And then on the bike, I actually do quite a lot of turbo sessions, just because, especially when I'm training specifically for T100, like non-drafting races, I just find it easier to get used to sitting in the position for long periods of time. Obviously, when you're out on the roads, you have to constantly be aware of traffic and, other elements. So sometimes when I just want to do a really focused block, I do quite a lot of riding on the turbo, just to be able to get used to sitting in that position for long periods of time. So I do kind of maybe 2 or 3 sessions on the bike, which are typically, they range from kind of threshold intervals to kind of longer, like lower threshold intervals. I do some VO2 efforts as well. And then I swim 5 to 6 times a week with 2 gym sessions as well. And then on top of that, obviously there's physio, sports massage, etc. We keep busy.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
How are you like riding in, like when you're going out on the bike? When I used to, before a TT, we used to spend more time on the TT bike and our exact setup, so you get used to it. So how much time are you spending a week on, like, say, for example, in your TT helmet versus your standard helmet, just to get used to that equipment and things like that?
Yeah, I would say when I'm leading into a T100, I typically do pretty focused blocks on the TT bike.
Yeah.
But I normally wouldn't go around wearing my TT helmet. I like to just train in like the more ventilated helmets, like the Met Trenta. I was wearing a lot in Australia because it was like super ventilated.
Oh, it's best, isn't it?
Yeah, and when we were actually doing quite a lot of crit races when we were in Australia, because I was there with the the British Triathlon Federation, and that was definitely it was cool and super hot. We were in the Gold Coast and super humid, but wearing the Met Trenta for that was perfect. But I would say it depends what I'm kind of working towards. This year I also will be doing a lot of short course, like World Triathlon Series, because I'm aiming to try and qualify for another Olympic Games.
Amazing.
But yeah, I'm excited to be doing some short course again, combined with T100. I'm lucky in the fact that, I'm not part of like a training squad, which I do miss that element.
Yeah.
But because of that, it means I can do really focused blocks with my coach of like the specific race I'm leading into. So yeah, right now I'm just trying to get back from injury and get back into like full training again. So it's been a frustrating process, but unfortunately that's just how it is as an athlete. Sometimes we push our bodies to the max and sometimes too much.
Yeah. Honestly, I say it's a roller coaster of emotions. Like every week, one week you're like, I love this sport. This is the best. And the next week you're like, what the hell? This is fucking me. But I suppose because what I find really interesting is there's so many young girls out there doing triathlon and when they're young and then they get to a certain age and like they've just done it to death and they think about quitting and everything. I suppose, what is your message to them? Because you've obviously done it from such a young age and you've ridden the waves and got through these hard times. So how would you advise them, like when you are having a tough time, like it sounds like your build up to Paris, like how do you push through those tough times and keep going?
Well, it's a hard question because I did really struggle actually in the build up to Paris. Like there's no denying that I found it incredibly hard and did question my love for the sport.
What was the build up to Paris that made it so hard, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, we had a really difficult qualification process and unfortunately it got to a point where there was a couple of us fighting for the final spot on the team and it just became incredibly political, difficult, and it was quite a distressing process, to be honest, because it was argued that the kind of criteria wasn't quite clear, and so it was just really, really tight between two athletes. There was I was selected and then deselected because there was an appeal process and then selected again and then deselected again. So it was really distressing. It meant I didn't get to go to kind of the kitting out day for the Olympics and I just didn't get to enjoy what I felt like should be an incredible experience. So it was a real shame to have that build up. And to be honest, I arrived at the Olympics just completely burnt out and exhausted because, it had been a kind of quite a long process with, had to get lawyers involved and it was a big legal process. So it was, it was a shame to have that kind of build up into, like I said, what I'd hoped would have been the best experience of my life. And in one way it was, because I guess the Olympics is about kind of, enduring the hard times and in this sense, I did endure a really difficult time and I made it to that point, despite not having the result outcome I would have liked. So it was a celebration of that anyway. But I guess because now I've experienced one Olympics, I kind of want to go back and put those demons to bed and try and get a result I'm more proud of. So I guess the next couple of years will be kind of focused on that. But, also I really, really love the T100. I really want to, retain my title if I can.
Yeah.
But I would say, to answer your first question, I think just kind of going back to basics and just going back to just swim, bike, run, or just the everyday enjoyment of kind of meeting up with my friends for training and, taking off training days without obsessing over numbers or, looking too much at data when I was going through a difficult time was really great for me. I mean, I've done this sport since I was 8 years old. I do it for the love of the sport. Nothing else. Now I'm lucky enough to call it a career, but ultimately it's been my passion for nearly 20 years. I think, now obviously I'm going through a hard time where I can't, just go out for a run or just go out for a ride because I've, had quite a difficult time with injury, but I also have a really great support network and I've been able to lean on them. And I have friends outside of sport who couldn't care less what I achieve in the sport, to be honest. Like they just care about kind of my happiness. And I think reconnecting with them during difficult times and having that balance is also really important. Like I just finished studying last year. And I think whenever I was, you know, struggling with the triathlon side of things, it just enabled me to focus even more on my studying and my degree. So yeah, I would say just keeping the balance in your life of, you know, triathlon's a huge part of my life, but it's not everything. Like I have my friends, I have my family, I have my degree.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think during difficult times, it's just important to kind of, yeah, I guess reconnect with that and channel your energy maybe into something else, or just prioritizing what you can do every day instead of, you know, crying over the fact that there's racing going on and I'm not there right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I think it's just thinking like these, in the moment, it feels never ending, doesn't it? But it's a temporary time. And I think if you just stick at things and you surround, like you say, you surround yourself around people that keep you positive and you forget numbers and everything for a minute and just keep your love for it, then it's, yeah, you're more likely to do it longer, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of trying to enjoy, the everyday things as well. Like when I was in Australia, I obviously couldn't do kind of all the training I wanted to do, but I tried to make the most of what I could do. I remember one of the younger athletes on the British Triathlon program saying to me, "Oh, you're really joyful and happy." And I'm like, "That's funny because I'm actually really sad right now because I'm struggling with my calf injury." But I guess that just shows how I just like to, try and enjoy the things that I can do at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so with, obviously you don't know exactly when this calf injury will be better, I suppose, but when is your next goal to be back racing this year?
Yeah, I am on the up from it. So I'm hoping to be racing the next T100, which is in May in Spain. So that'll be the second one of the series. So that's really exciting. And then I obviously have, my new sponsors that I want to do proud on race day. And so I'm really excited for that. And so, I have a goal that's, I guess, about 7 or 8 weeks away at the moment, but that's keeping me motivated every day. And then, also got some short course racing on the scene. So I'm potentially going to China for a World Cup race. So I'm hoping to be back racing and kind of into the season by May. Not too far away, which is exciting.
How long do your seasons go on for, out of interest? Because it sounds similar to mine, where it used to be about April till September, but now mine's pretty much February to November. Is yours getting a bit like that as well? It's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess back in the day, it would have been, April to September. You'd go on holiday end of September, have a whole winter of training and then be back racing April time. And so now racing in May feels so late to me. But actually last year, I did my first race on the 15th of February and my final race on the 13th of December. So it was like 10-month season, which was crazy. And to be honest, it's probably one of the reasons why I maybe got a bit injured, because I guess I got to January this year and was like, it's January, I need to be back training fully. But in reality, I'd only had like 2 weeks of chilling out holiday time. And so I think I probably put too much pressure on myself to get back. Yeah.
And obviously you changed quite a lot of new sponsors for this year, if I'm right. So you've also got that short period of time, I suppose, in off season to get it all dialed for you to then get going again. It's just, I feel like, there's no off time now.
Yeah, I think obviously it's, I'm incredibly grateful to have new sponsors supporting me. And I had a really great year last year. So it's cool to kind of reap the rewards of that. But it does come with a lot of change. And then obviously finishing my season in December meant there was a bit of like a mad turnaround and a rush to get things organized. So I think it just like all kind of, built up quite a lot of stress. And, but yeah, like I probably sound like such a drama queen. I've literally, it's not taking me out of the season too much. Like I'm literally going to be back racing in May, and I'll get a full season of racing in. So I'm just having my drama queen moment.
But when you're totally allowed to. I think when you're at the level you're at and you sacrifice so much, right? You sacrifice friends' weddings, everything like that. You just, when anything interrupts it, it's bound to get you a little bit. I think just to like wrap up a little bit, it would be interesting to hear about like the safety in triathlon, and because I mean, in the cycling world, it's like a headline story every week about the speeds of the peloton and things like that. And obviously you guys are also putting on bigger chain rings. I don't know if you have like UCI limitations with your equipment, what you can and can't do, but yeah, how are you seeing the safety on the courses and stuff? And I suppose how important is it for the equipment that you're using to feel secure with?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is like a hot topic right now. And I guess from my experience with middle distance has only been T100. And I would say that I feel incredibly unfortunate that the T100 prioritizes our kind of safety above all else. And I think they're such a professional organization in that they really make the athletes feel like they're, looked after and cared for, everything from kind of our preparation into the race and just feeling heard. And so, but there has been like a lot of changes in terms of, the hydration systems were becoming the most convoluted, crazy, pretty unsafe systems. And now they've really clamped down on kind of the measurements.
Okay,
with what we're allowed. So your bottle length kind of from the bars can only come out like to a certain distance, and height, just I guess, because also it can create a super unbalanced front end system.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
When you're packing loads of liquid into the front of your bars. So they've really clamped down on that. And I mean, for T100, I'm lucky that the professionals get their own race and closed roads and all of that. So I've never experienced any other form of middle distance racing. So I can't say for other organizations. And then the same with in short course and World Triathlon, obviously that is draft legal. So we have a World Triathlon Committee, and which is a committee of athletes, and they're constantly asking for feedback about kind of safety measures and ensuring kind of the safety of athletes. So I feel from my experience that I'm really fortunate with the racing I do, that I do feel like they put the athletes first. But, I would say looking from the outside, I do feel from speaking to friends in kind of the cycling world that there is a way to go from that perspective. So like there's been some already this year, some kind of horrible scenes in the cycling world.
Yeah, it's crazy. And San Remo was awful to watch, wasn't it? You probably saw that.
I think I was in Australia at the time, so I kind of missed it, but I see highlights, sometimes.
It's just, I think it's crazy because obviously everyone's getting stronger, equipment's getting faster, and also people, it's their careers, so people are maybe taking risks. But I think it's amazing to hear that, you're in your area, they like listen to the athletes and feedback and starting to make systems where it's like an equal playing field and safe, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I guess with triathlon, ultimately, you don't win the race on the bike. So there's not that kind of mad like push and sprint at the end where, the difference between 10 meters is the difference between life-changing amounts of money. So from that perspective, I think we'll always be different to, like the cycling world. But I do feel like, with the change in technologies and, aerodynamics and bikes are evolving every minute, it seems that, it is something that, needs to be thought about.
I think it's crazy to think that like back in the day, they never wore helmets. They didn't have half the equipment we had.
Yeah.
actually mad to think about. But yeah, I mean, we'll wrap it up there. And I just want to say good luck. We hope that your injury heals soon. And it's great to have you in the Met family, and we'll be watching and cheering for you. So thank
you. I'm so excited to be rocking the Met helmets this year. The colorway is on point.
How good are they? The colors are great.
Yeah. So love like the iridescent, it's like mermaid light. I'm super excited and hopefully can do the Met family proud, and very, very happy to be part of the family.
And that feels like the perfect wrap to episode 2 of the Helmet Podcast. Stay tuned for more conversation on cycling safety, design and performance. A massive thank you to Kate for joining us today, and we look forward to following her epic season ahead.